But thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And
Okay.
can you check that expense line and find out for us, please? That information, copy it.
Okay. I want to move on to the Board of Assessors, Bob Bushway, and he's brought along one of the town's elected assessors, Jim Henderson. And gee, I don't know, one of you is going to have to stand. No, let's find a chair. Let's find a chair. Pull that up.
Is it just the assessor's budget, or is there another one?
Assessors. And there's a narrative.
I don't. I refuse to spend money to print out hundreds of pages of budgets in the wrong.
Yes, I have notes on, so you can have this one. Well, I don't know why. This one I have my notes all over.
Is this the same one?
Yeah. 349.
Okay, I'm just going to pull up your budget. Anyway, I want to welcome Bob Bushway. This is his first opportunity to come talk to us here at the Warrant Committee because Bob is new to the town, and so he doesn't know any of us except I've had. Oh, he might know you. You know everybody, Kevin. Yeah, can't keep up with it. Anyway. So you can see all our names. Some of us have been here for a while, some not. But yeah, we're delighted to have you here, and it's a real pleasure to have you tell me that growth is healthy in the town, and I can rely on some of that, and lots of good news there. So why don't you tell us a bit about
Okay.
the office.
Sure, thank you very much. I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about myself, because I've been here 5 months now, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jim for a little presentation. I came prior to Milton. I've been here since August. I was the principal assessor in the town of Hopkinton for 15 years. I was the president of the Middlesex County Assessors Association in 2008. Prior to Hopkinton, I was working for the city of Newton for 4 years, and then prior to that, I was a fee appraiser for several banks and so forth. So, quite a bit of real estate experience, and I'm happy to be in Milton. It's been a great town. The staff has been terrific. The dealings with Ted has been great. The board has been very, very, very helpful to me since I started on board. So. This is a little bit intimidating for me. Prior, in Hopkinton, we had the town manager present the budget to the selectmen, so this is a little bit different for me, so bear with me.
Well, we'll make you as uncomfortable as we can.
Okay.
It's more fun
Through
for us
the
that
ringer.
way, yeah.
Sadly getting good at it.
Oh, well. Anyway, well, Jim, you have a presentation you want to give us
Yes, a
before
brief
we look at the
presentation.
budget? That'd be great.
I have a handout too. I think this is my first time doing this too. I know Jeff usually takes the lead on this, so you want to just pass that around. So I'm kind of new to this. But one thing I found when I ran 3 years ago, and I still get the question, is it's like, what the heck do the assessors do? And I start to try to explain it. And after about 10 seconds, you can tell they say, gee, let's talk about the Patriots or the Red Sox or something else. Nobody wants to talk about taxes and the assessment. So with that in mind, I tried to come up with something that would be, kind of take the 10,000-foot view as to what we do and why it's important to the town that we have the office and the professionals in the office do what they do. The heading you'll see on this, it says Milton Assessor's Office, Keepers of the Tax Base. And that's pretty much succinctly defines what we do, because it's very, very critical and important that we keep the tax base in shape, so to speak, that it includes all the properties that it should, the properly assessed, et cetera, to be fair to all the taxpayers in Milton. And that's a very large responsibility. So, but why is keeping the tax base so important? Well, there's the basic model here, and I hate to bring back the, I did this like 10 minutes ago, is the tax levy. You have the tax levy, comes from the budget in the town as to what you need to run the town, and that's the process you're going through here. And there's other sources of revenue that come in, but 70% of the budget is funded from local property taxes. And when you arrive at the tax levy, which is the number after all the other funds that are accounted for, that gets divided by the tax base. And that's the total assessed value of all the property in the town. Tax levy divided by the tax base equals the tax rate, which for this year it's $13.94 per 1,000. So this is where we come in. We have to keep this tax base correct. And how we do that is by assessing the property that's in the town and making sure that it's properly valued. So how do changes in the tax base affect your taxes? Well, new growth comes in. That's going to increase, I don't want to keep on holding that up. It increases the tax base, but also allows the town to increase and raise additional taxes from that new growth. So it allows more money for the budget. So in the end, it ends up being actually neutral, because if everything else being equal, with the new growth and the increase in the budget, we end up pretty much in the same base tax-wise. If tax-exempt property comes out of the tax base, out of the denominator, what ends up happening is that the tax rate is going to go up, and it increases taxes. So the Eustis estate was sold recently, I think $7 million. It hasn't come off the tax roll yet, but it will come off the tax roll. So that's $7 million in value. And at the tax rate, that's roughly $100,000 in tax revenue that's going to be gone. Now, people say, well, that's, they're a nonprofit, that's fine. But what ends up happening, that $100,000 has to be picked up by everybody else who's in the tax base. So it just doesn't go away. We have a closed-loop system with this. So people should be aware that that does happen. And it's also not only coming up with the overall assessment and keeping that correct, it's the individual assessments too. So if your assessment is 200,000 too high and yours is 200,000 too low, in the total assessment, it's the same. But when you get your tax bill, if it's 200,000 at, almost $14 a thousand, you're going to be paying $2,800 more in taxes, and you're going to say thank you because I'm paying $2,800 less. So it's very important not only getting the aggregate, but also that each individual property owner has a fair value that's fair in relation to all the other assessed properties in the town. So it's very critical. And we have, how many parcels? 8,000, 9,000? So there's a lot of properties that have to be included. We operate under, what laws of the do the assessor's office operate under? Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, assessment of local taxes. Now, when I joined the board, I went away for a week training and learned an awful lot, more than I ever thought I would want to know about local taxes. And I also the second year, took another course on commercial property assessments. So we are very into making sure that we're current and up to date as to what the assessment rules are. And it's just like, I'm a CPA by profession, I have to understand the tax laws. You have to understand the tax laws in this area. Because the bottom line, we want to make sure that we're fair to all the taxpayers in the town, property owners in the town, that we're handling their situation correctly in accordance with the law. The office is transparent, and we actively assist the taxpayers. Whenever I'm in there, Barbara and Nancy and Bob, always helping people. If they have an issue, we want to make sure we do it right. That's the bottom line, and we're fair to the taxpayers. We want all the taxpayers to have full faith in the assessor process in the assessor's office, because we actually represent them. This is a part of our mandate. How are the assessed values determined? Well, you just recently got your final, your tax bill in December 31st. which has the assessment for fiscal, final assessment for fiscal 15. Now, people think, well, that's my value as of now, but the assessment is based on values as of January 1st, 2014. And you say, okay, that kind of makes sense. But that assessment is based on sales values coming from 2013. So we're almost 2 years behind, but there's really no other way to do it because you can't get a current assessment right now. You need to have data in order to work that data. All properties have to be valued based on full and fair value. Another situation too is that it would be great if we had every property sold as of December 31st, then we'd have the right assessment for every property in the town. But less than 5% of the property is sold every year. So we have to use techniques like CAMA, which is computer-assisted mass appraisal, which helps us in order to calculate the value of the properties in town, using statistical modeling, et cetera, to get the right valuations. The key is not so much to look at this is the right valuation as of this point in time, but everybody is, when you compare it to other assessments in the town, everybody is at a relatively same level. I'd love to say that it's a perfect science, but sometimes, you know, there's some things that are a little bit outside the range. But as I said before, absent having a sale for every property in the town, it's very difficult to get to that point. Some interesting facts of Milton. Our tax base, 96% residential, 4% commercial. Unfortunately, not like Boston that can, you know, has such a high commercial rate that it helps the taxpayers. The two largest taxpayers are tax-exempt entities, Fuller Village and Winter Valley. Those are the largest taxpayers in the town. And people say, well, they're tax-exempt, why do they pay taxes? Well, the property isn't used for the tax-exempt purposes. Curry, Milton Hospital, and Milton Academy, the property is used for the tax-exempt purposes. And those three end up being the three largest private property holders in the town. And if they were on the tax rolls, everybody's tax bill would basically be affected by 10%. So roughly 10% of your tax bill is going to cover what doesn't come in from those entities. And we are in the top 11% of the state in average property tax bill. Part of that, I think, is because we have such a low commercial base. And that's kind of my 2 or 3 minute presentation of what we do. If you want to throw out some questions,
Sure.
Bob will answer them.
Well, that's fair. He's
No,
the
we'll both
professional, and you're the volunteer like the rest of us at the table. Lee Michael.
Thanks. 2 questions. On the 96% residential, 4% commercial, on the spectrum of towns that you understand in Massachusetts, where do we fall in terms of what percentage is residential versus commercial?
We're very high, you know, Milton is very high residentially weighted. Hopkinton, for example, was 85% residential.
85?
We had EMC, which is about 6% of my whole tax base, so they were a large chunk of the value, even though most of the suburban towns are around 80%, 85%. So Milton is extremely high on the residential side.
I don't know what Boston's number, but it's...
Yeah, they're probably 60.
I wouldn't compare
about 60,
Milton to
40.
Boston
Yeah,
per
but I
se,
just-
but I'm not looking to build Boston here. Okay, thank you. And then the second question is on voluntary taxes that are sometimes paid by tax-exempt organizations. I know that Boston and some other towns have looked at asking educational institutions to kick in some money. There's obviously plenty of ambulances and fire runs going to Curry College and other places. Have we looked at that option for Milton and had conversations there?
Yes, actually, I'm on the pilot committee, and we do have, Curry does make some payments in lieu of taxes. The agreement that they have, I think they pay close to $60,000 a year, plus they've made other payments for other over the years, other amounts in sponsoring certain things for the town. So I'm not saying that they were without assisting the town. It's just that when you look at the numbers, like you said, the police calls, I think they're the #1 police call in the town, goes there.
So when you said that the tax bill could potentially be decreased by 10% if those three private properties were to be fully taxed at their valuation, were you already including the amounts that were paid in lieu of taxes?
Pretty much so, yeah. I mean, in relation to what it would be, if they were taxed, I think the last time I looked at it would be about 7 million we'd raise. So when you look at 50, 60,000 in relation to
Okay.
7 million, it's a relatively small amount.
Thank you.
And I mean, the pilot committee, it's basically came to the same conclusion that the pilot committee did in 96 and 97, which is to propose coming up with a 25% payment in lieu of taxes, and I don't know where that's going to go. But I think in these times, because they are consuming services,
Can I ask
should
one
be
more question?
participation. Go
Do you happen to know if BIDMC Boston makes a payment in lieu of taxes to Boston?
Yes, they do.
I would think that that would give us a great argument to say that BIDMC Milton needs to
Yes.
make a similar payment to our town.
But it's strange what has happened, I don't know if you've read some articles, is that people were involved and engaged in that process, or the pilot payment, as long as Mayor Menino was in, and it seems like once he's gone, now he's deceased, but obviously, but a lot of these institutions are reneging on that, so where it will go, I don't know.
Okay.
You know,
Thank
the whole subject of payments in lieu of taxes is interesting. My understanding of the Boston situation is that generally the hospitals, the medical facilities were pretty good about it, and higher education wasn't too bad, but
Yes.
everybody else was struggling to meet essentially a new burden on a very thin,
Yep.
you know, line line for them. So I'm not sure how that would work out here. I don't think it's anything we can depend on for an immediate 7 million infusion. So, but at any rate, so if I did my math correctly just now, the base is about 900 million for the town. If
Base, the assessed base,
the assessed value of all taxable property, is that right?
I think it's 4 to 5 million, isn't
The total value of the town is about 4.7 billion.
it?
Billion.
Billion,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, then I need to revisit my math. That's $14 times about the 65 million that we take in. So it's about 4.7 billion. And that includes the value of the nonprofits?
No,
No.
that's the
Okay.
tax
Taxable.
base.
The tax
Taxable.
base. Okay. So that's a lot to keep track of. So one of the things that you do every 9 or 10 years is the in-depth assessment that costs the town, this time, is costing the town $345,000. And we're making the last payment in fiscal year 16 of $115,000. And that's a process, and that's a revaluation of the entire town, right down to home visits and counting closets in your bathrooms. So how's that going?
It's going great. Patriot Properties has the contract. They've done about they've visited about two-thirds of the property in town, and, you know, by this time next year, they will have wrapped it up. So I monitor and send out the crews in different neighborhoods. So this major reval is what they call a full measuring list, which is done every 9 years. That's why it's a significant amount of money, because there's a lot of people involved as far as going out and actually doing the inspections. On the interim years, the cost of the town is significantly less because they're not out knocking on doors as often, so. But the program's going quite well.
Great. Now, in the interim years, that's about every 3 years, there is also a partial survey done, or how does that work?
Yeah, every 3 years, it's a full revaluation where Department of Revenue comes out, and visits the town, visits the assessor's office, and requires various reports from the town, make sure that we are taxing at full and fair cash value. And we need to, that's a state mandate, so in order to get the values certified, we need to, hit certain standards with the Department of Revenue.
But you also hire someone to help you get those standards? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
And is that Patriot?
Traditionally, it's been Patriot Properties, yes. They're probably the largest contractor in the state that performs these services,
Do they have any competition?
yes.
And would you consider, when's the last time you got bids? Do you know?
I think we get bids we
Every
put it out
time.
for bid, yes.
Yeah, every 3
Every time.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a convenient, they're probably, there's 3 good-sized outfits in the state, Patriot, Vision, and State Cama. Patriot is in my opinion, I've worked with them in other communities, very reliable, and they also, not only do they have consultants, but they supply the software as well, so it's a pretty seamless approach. And it's to do a conversion, it's a little arduous, and unless you're having an issue with the vendor that you currently have, it's typically not worth it.
Yeah, interesting. So on the off years, as it were, what do you imagine our expenses going to be for Patriot?
Probably in the neighborhood, I haven't gotten beyond FY16 looking at it
Right.
yet, and I'd have to see what Jeff, my predecessor was doing, but I would, think it would be considerably less, probably somewhere in the range of $25,000, just to kind of keep up with building permit inspections. It's fairly significant. We're up over 1,000 every year. Building permits are up 51% since 2009. I did a little study. So there's a lot more properties that we need to consistently go out and visit. If we don't, then we stand the chances of perhaps not picking up added growth to the town, which is added to the tax base. So and above all else, we want to make sure that the taxes, everybody's paying their fair share. So if your neighbor puts on a large addition, that should be reflected in the assessed value. We need to go out and constantly pick those improvements up.
So every time a building permit is issued, then your office follows up on it to see what the value achieved is really?
Any improvement to the property needs to be up, we constantly update our records, so if the square footage increases, or somebody puts in a new kitchen, or finishes the basement, things of that nature, we want to make sure that that's reflected in their assessed value. So it's a lot of...
So do you rely on the building department?
Yes, they have a software program that our staff goes in and puts into our camera system that Jim was talking about, and that triggers us to go out and do the inspection.
Great. So maybe we should look at your budget, since you're here.
I'm just curious, how many people here have gone to the website and look at property values, or their own property values, and comparing it? About half. I was kind of surprised. I thought it might be less than that even, because I've talked to people, they say, how do I get my assessment? And there it is, and not too many people know. So.
Very sharp group here.
No, it's actually, it's a great resource if you're in the market looking for a house, because you can get much more information out of that than often from the realtor's disclosures and information. You can get a much better idea of floor plans and actual square footage. So it's a great resource. Does that have to be? You put that in quite a while back? I don't know.
I
Does
believe
it,
it's been in place. I mean, I don't have a
is
history
it
here,
due
but
for an
it's,
overhaul or anything like that?
I mean,
It's part of Patriot.
Patriot Properties maintains it.
Okay.
It's called WebPro, and, you know, they download our data, and they have all the sketches, digital photos. It's a real nice service, and it's.
That's great.
It's part of the budget, but it's also a great service to the community. Cuts down on a lot of the foot traffic, praises, attorneys, taxpayers used to have to come into the office to get a property record card. Now they can just go on the website and pick it up.
No, it's nice. So, as I mentioned before, I don't know how much we can afford this year above contractual obligations for salary and wages and contracts. But if there is a small amount, then we have your level service request, and so we want to focus on the difference there, and it is a small difference, but we ought to know, we want to make sure we understand what you're asking for. And it's about, well, it's the difference between $12,903 and $10,303, so
Right.
$2,600. And let's see, so basically, based on your narrative, we should find it in training, education, which was 0 in 14, and jumps up to 2,200 in the level service request. And the narrative has a nice breakdown on what that might be used for. What would you take it out of if we weren't able to do that for you?
Well, I'm not sure. I was looking at the prior budgets, and, I mean, I'm a pretty big advocate of training and continuing education.
Yeah.
I have to keep up 45 hours every 3 years for my certification. And, you know, I'd like to send the staff out to keep up with the laws that change constantly, and just to go to workshops, there's clerks' meetings. And they, quite frankly, I don't think we're attending those on a frequent basis. Jim mentioned he went out to, UMass has a school, assesses school every August for a week. These are all great resources where not only are you getting educational credits, but you're also talking to other assessors and, you know, bouncing ideas off of them. Like a lot of you probably go to conventions and workshops, and just the communication that you have with the other professionals can be a great benefit. So, you know, ever since I was involved with Middlesex County workshops, I'd like to continue that, and part of that is the education.
Makes sense to me. So I did notice, though, that your line for professional service is interesting. In 14, you had a budget of $3,500 for it. You spent about $3,000, and your appropriation in 15 is $5,600. And you're continuing that level for in your budget request.
Right.
For 16. And I'm just kind of wondering, what is that, and do you need 5,600 of it if you only spent 3,000 actually in 14, the year just finished?
Right. So what I understand, and Nancy in the office has been a big help, helping me kind of segregate these expenses, but a large chunk of that is this Zobrio software, which I believe was spoken of earlier, and it's basically helps us run the office. It's the two assistants in the office run the software, and it's an annual maintenance fee. Software support also covers data conversions. When I take my Patriot Camus program, I have to run it through the Zobrio billing system in order for them to convert my data into an actual tax bill. So it's $1,500 every time they do a conversion, and we do 2 billings a year, so there's $3,000 of it right there. And then there's some additional fees for the software support that Zobrio charges.
Okay, so one of the things we're trying to accomplish this year is to protect people's contracts from any sort of leveling necessities. So if you actually have a contract for this, and it's going to cost you $3,000 or $4,000, whatever it is, per year, it would be good to identify that instead of just having it under professional services, because generally those types of things go up, and if the town needs to ask you for, you know, a level dollar general expense line, you want that to be protected, so that you can continue doing business, even if you don't have as many office supplies as you might like. But so that would be good. I don't think it's going to be, in the context of this budget, would be an issue this year maybe, but you certainly want to be able to identify what you are paying contractually for those services. Kevin?
Yeah, I was the subcommittee chair for Bob's department, and we talked about this, and in his prior budgets, I mean, in Jeff's budgets, he had as much as 19,000 in that line, so they have been moving some of that to the bottom contractual number on the page, so
Okay.
just moving the rest wouldn't be. Wouldn't be much of a problem.
So there's 10,580 in software support here.
Right.
Due to go up to 11,350. This is what we're trying to protect. If you have, if that other line of professional services is actually contracts, it should be down below.
Right, okay.
Okay?
I did meet with Amy Dexter to try to segregate, you know, some of, you know, drill down a little bit and isolate some of those expenses, so we can keep doing that going
Well, no,
forward.
it's good. You have the 115,000 and the 11,000 there for your basic. I mean, that is your basic web page and Patriots setup that's covered on that, right?
Yes.
But if there's more that belongs down there, then we should put it down there. No, I was just thinking that if we weren't able to award level service dollars, that you might have some wiggle room there in terms of training, and that professional services line to maybe get some training accomplished.
Right.
So great. Any questions? Phil?
Yeah, I'm looking at your personnel services line, and I must be missing something here. You're looking for an increase of about 11,600. And if you look under your salary and wage detail, well, I guess the first question I have is you have $4,800 here for elected board in fiscal year 16, but not in any prior year. Is this a new expenditure?
Not that I know of.
No.
So it should be an expenditure under the prior year budgets as well.
Yes.
Now, the chief appraiser's salary looks to be the same as it was before. And we see small increases in the admin clerk and the senior clerk. So I'm trying to figure out where the $11,600 is.
I might be able to help with that.
Okay. Am I correct that the chief appraiser's salary, it's the same rate as it was in July of
No,
15?
When it was vacant in 15, it was about 91,000. And in 16, it's 94.9.
So this information here is incorrect then on July 1, 2015? Because it lists the same weekly rate.
That's correct, actually. It's,
And that holds true for the others.
So we need corrected information to know what the increase is in that salary item and whether that accounts for the $11,600 increase in the total personnel services.
thanks.
Did Jeff have accumulated compensated time that had to be paid?
He had buyback time. I know last year there was, I want to say 20.
But that would have been last year's budget, not this year's.
Yeah.
That would have inflated last year's budget, but it doesn't appear in here, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, and Phil, that money for
It's-
the
it's
assessors
actually- it's
wasn't
right-
last year's budget. It wasn't last year's budget, Phil.
If you look at Schedule A, under fiscal year 15, that $20,433
Right.
buyback one time, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Well,
I did the math, that comes to the 11,000 when we look at the different salaries. That's the number,
What comes to 11,000?
the difference in the salaries.
In the chief assessor's salary alone?
And the
Or
other two, and the other two, all
Alright.
three.
Well, we'll get some corrected information.
okay, we do have the steps, we do have the charts, we can do the math. But it's nice if somebody does it for us, so. Okay, great. So, you'll get back to us on that
Yes.
question? Okay. Great, thank you. Anything else? Come on, Kevin.
No, I was very impressed.
No, it's-
Bob and I
it's-
spoke, and I said I was here to help him.
Well, it is a pretty straightforward budget, aside from the contractual services that are large. And in fiscal year 17, I don't think there's any Patriot Place contractual services involved. And then I think it'll kick up again in 19. You have 2 years off after this.
Right,
Big
every
one.
3, yeah, every 3 years.
So then all of a sudden in 19, there's a charge, and
Mhm.
in a perfect world, you might sort of try and smooth it out and budget it, but we don't have any good mechanism for that, so it's good to be aware of what that number will be when it comes down the pike.
I could take a look at that going forward and maybe talk to Patriot or some other vendors about maybe trying to smooth it out on an annual basis. Yeah.
Worth a conversation, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for coming in
Thank
you.
and
Thank
you.
cluing us up.
Thanks, Bob.
That's great.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hopefully you guys warmed down for me. I got a little bit of a problem. I blew up my desktop, and my budget was on the desktop, so if anybody has a paper copy, I'd appreciate it.
I might have one. You know what?
I got one.
Are we all set?
Yeah, all set. All right, we'll start off with some good news. We just refied one of the school bonds. It was on a 10-year call. We had 10 bids on it. The winning bid, true interest cost was 1.428868. Coupon rates now are down to 2%. They were 5%. So that's going to save the town $1,084,000 over the next 10 years.
So you're getting way ahead of me here.
So that's the good news.
Okay. Does everybody know Jim McAuliffe?
The town treasurer?
Town treasurer. Anyway, I was able to send all that debt service out to the
Okay.
committee. And I just wanted to grab, I think it's this one here. Nope, not that one. Maybe it's the summary, yes, the summary. Because this really is good news, and it affects this committee directly, because one of the new articles, I think, is partially in response to this development here. But if you go to the bottom down here, it will tell you a total of $1,083,905 in savings over the remaining 10 years of the issue. So that's fabulous to be able to take advantage of our AAA rating and reposition the remaining bond. That was a school building bond.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, this is the second bond we refunded. We did one last year, and we saved, it was 1.3 million. So I mean, we saved 2.4 million on the school building project, just by refunding the bonds. And that goes directly back to the taxpayers. That's not something that's savings for the, money for next year. That's money that's going directly back to the taxpayers.
Right.
So when
Right.
people come in to beat me up about their tax bill, I can say, listen, this is what I saved you. It could be worse.
How's that work, Jim?
Not very well, as you know.
I never tried that one.
Anyway, it is timely, because who knows how long that these rates will stay.
Yeah, there's only one bond left, the library bond, that comes up in 17. If the rates are low at that point, we can also recall that one.
So it's not callable until then?
Yeah, in 2017.
All right, anyway, so among other things, Jim arranges for our bonding, and primarily collects all the tax revenue for the town as well. So, I want to take a quick look at debt service after we look at your budget, so while you're here, while we have you. But let's take a look at your budget first. Two revisions. Well, let's hope I get the right one. Okay, now, we don't have a narrative from you.
No, I mean, I gave you the same narrative the last 5 years in a row. It's
Well, there's something a little different this year.
It's not a whole lot there. It's
Your
bills, postage, envelopes.
There's not much there.
Now you get parking tickets, right?
I'll be acquiring parking tickets in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a piece of that, it's actually, I don't think it is here. That's coming out of the accountant's budget.
Okay, so it's in your revised budget that we
Yeah.
have. Okay?
Yeah, I don't-
And it's actually, that
It may
piece
not
of
be.
it is this line
Oh, there it
here.
is, yeah, 13,500.
contractual,
Yeah.
13,500.
That's the parking ticket company they use out of Terrytown, New York, called Complis. And that's a contract the accounting department signed. I'm looking into next year, going with our deputy collector. I think he could probably do it for cheaper than what this company does, and what they get for the money. I know a lot of other towns, out of Treasure School, one of the deputy collectors brought up the fact that he also does this kind of work. So I asked our deputy collector, and he said he'd do it, and I'm sure I can beat him down to a better price than this.
So, my understanding of this, when it was in the central business office,
Yep.
was that if you had a lot of parking tickets that got collected, then the fee was higher. So it was hard to know how to budget for this item, because if you had a lot of activity, then it was a bigger bill. In fact, one year, I think, or recently, it was as much as $19,000 was budgeted for this activity. Do we have any idea? And then clearly, we only spent about $13,500 last year, and that's why that.
I think this
That
is,
amount was
I think this is a
transferred.
contract that they have. I don't know anything about it at this point.
Contract, but it's variable based on volume of parking tickets.
See, I have no.
Tickets issued?
As far as the ins and outs of this, we're not getting it for another 2 weeks, so I don't know anything about it. What I did do, though, is hire the parking clerk upstairs to work on this. So we should have a good feeling for it.
Right, but financially, the higher volume of parking tickets that is handled by through this contract,
Yeah,
the more money you will pay.
yeah. I don't know what they supply. I haven't even touched the ins and outs of the shed. I'm getting parking tickets, I'm getting trash stickers, I'm getting recycling bins. Treasurer's office is now gonna become a retail operation in the next few weeks. So it's more like one-stop shopping. So the foot traffic's gonna pick up quite a bit with the same staff.
You got a coffee machine coming in?
No, I got a coffee machine last year. I'm good with that.
Nothing for your clients, jeez.
Machine?
So in terms of personnel, though, is there a change in?
It is a big change. My assistant treasurer is retiring on Friday. And there's a line in the Schedule D on her sick time buyback, $11,925. She's also going to be on vacation until, I believe it's March 6th. The new person's not going to start. I think DPW is going to give us the new person on February 2nd, so we'll save a week. There's also going to be some savings in the salary line, but that has yet to be determined. We don't know what the rate the new person is going to come down at. So that should drop a bit. But once we get everybody in place, we'll know what the salary is going to be for next year. But that salary line should drop next year, except for the 11,000 that we owe Diane, who's leaving us.
So she's leaving, and,
And Joyce Demetko is taking her position.
okay, thank you.
And Kathleen O'Donnell is going to be taking Joyce's position.
And Kathleen has a lot of experience with the new activities that
Yeah.
will be based in your office now.
Yeah, right now she does the parking and the
Right.
tickets. I mean, the trash tickets.
And it does make sense to my mind, it made sense to bring down some of that activity to the first floor for retail traffic, rather than having people run upstairs to the,
And a lot of them are coming back down, getting a voucher, running back up, and it was ticking off the residents of the town. I mean, those vouchers are sort of a weird idea to begin with.
well, if you don't need a trash sticker, you could always pay online for some of these things.
Oh, yeah, most stuff's paid online.
But I imagine if you come in determined to get something done, and then you have to run from pillar to post and back again, then
Well, what's worse
You might
is,
be irritated.
if you go to the assessor's office and you want a property card, it's $1. And if you come down to my office to get a voucher, which probably costs a dime to make, to go back down the hall to give them a voucher for $1.
really.
Yeah, it's an antiquated, not a very good system. They try to talk the
So-
auditors out of doing it this way, but they thought it was a good,
Is that because the assessor can't take cash?
yeah. And they do about 5 property cards a month. It's $5 in cash. So it's not a,
Doesn't Zobrio, he's paying for the Zobrio cash management system over there. Wouldn't that allow him to
you would think.
take cash? Okay, I know that the, the auditors and the, and also the Department of Revenue like to have cash centralized and not in, a lot of little fiefdoms and basically that makes sense, but for that kind of volume, it's crazy, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's $5 a month with them, and the bigger bills are with the building department. A lot of the builders come in with cash, and they come down and get a voucher, and you're talking hundreds of dollars that they're shelling out, opposed to $5.
So it's a good thing that they're right upstairs from us.
Yes, they can come right down.
Instead of, okay, but anyway, you will, that 13,500, which was added to your budget, because it came over from the central business office, is,
That's coming out of central business office's budget.
right, and that's fine, but that budget had a $19,000 line item
I'll take
for
the
that.
19,000.
Yeah, you'll take it. Anyway, the experience would indicate that 13,500
Yeah,
should cover it.
I think there's a year left on that contract, and then we can see if we can get it done cheaper.
Okay, great. All right, so just an overlook on your Schedule A. I wasn't quite sure why these numbers were different. And $302, $620. Okay. They should be the same. I don't know why one didn't. Yeah, no, this will have to be fixed because this isn't, should be 302, 620. I don't know. I think perhaps maybe when there was a revision, I don't know. I don't know why it's different.
I know on the level dollar line, it is 302,
Right.
620.
And this is linked to the sheet. It should be linked to, and this is not linked. It's just plugged in, so. At any rate, that's fine. So again, we want to see what is the difference between your $85,000 and your $83,000 worth of general expenses. So what are you asking us for?
A little bit
Above
more
and beyond.
postage, as usual. We have
Okay,
a lot of new buildings in town. Sullivan Building down on Elliott Street. There's a few more houses coming online, which are gonna add to more tax bills, more excise tax bills. So every house that comes on is gonna generate another few dollars worth of postage each year.
see, we thought we finally got you up there last year.
Yeah, we got
Okay.
close.
But you actually spent more in 14 than is budgeted for you in 15. And in 14, you had a little help from the reserve fund to,
Yeah, I've
Meet
had,
your
since I've been
postage
here,
bill.
I've
So-
had to get a reserve fund transfer for the extra postage.
well, what we're trying to do is avoid that situation where you have to come to us for postage.
Yeah.
So,
mean, that's a
for
fixed
one thing, the
cost,
Department
isn't
of Revenue really didn't like it. Because it's foreseeable that
Yeah,
you would need
yeah.
the postage, so we should be budgeting for it. So this is a major reason when it comes to looking at, can we do something above and beyond contractual levels? Well, one of the things that we maybe really ought to be looking at is your postage line. And I'd say that's about the difference, right? In fact, that is the difference.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
2,100.
Okay, you got the 2,600 for equipment rental.
That's the postage machine in our office. It
Okay,
services the whole town.
so you have to have it.
Yeah, it's contract.
It's a contract-
Okay, so it should be,
Contract line.
okay, yeah, it should be down. We should be moving it to a contractual thing, because, and protecting it, because you haven't accounted for it in your level dollar, and if we're funding on a level dollar basis, all of a sudden, you don't have the $2,600 you need for the postage machine, and nobody gets their tax bills. and
Well,
the
that
town
that
stops
postage machine,
functioning.
all the tax bills now, we farm out to mass mailers,
Okay.
and they bill us for postage. With the Neopost machine, we use that for all the vendor checks that go out. Anybody, in the selectman's office, clerk's office, if they have any mail going out, the census, they'll run it through that machine, and then they'll reimburse my department for postage. So it's the one postage machine in the entire town hall that
Okay.
everybody uses.
Still need to be protected.
So now, the professional service line is also jumping around a little bit here. You had 11,000 appropriated for it in 15, but in 14 you only spent 7,800.
Yeah, we had a light year on tax title this year. I
Okay.
only filed 10 tax liens for the entire town,
Wow.
which usually you're doing 25, 30. But a lot of people paid up the taxes, and we started something different the last couple of years, where once we put a tax title on somebody's property, I'll immediately subsequent the taxes for that year also onto it. That way somebody's not coming in and paying the tax title off for this year, go back to the tax title the next year. So what they'll do is, if they come in, they pay it off now, they're paying it off last year, this year, and I won't have to file a tax title on them for another 2 years. So it's cut down on the amount of tax titles by subsequent things quicker.
By 50% almost.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, so it's worked,
So that's why I only did 10 instead of 20.
yeah.
No, not really.
Not quite.
Yeah, well,
But
we had a good year.
It's good.
It's a good
Come on.
one.
Yeah, it's,
Jim's talking about new ones.
Yeah, these are the new
Subsequent,
ones.
Right,
so
okay.
additional to
Right.
existing.
Okay.
yeah, but what you do is you immediately subsequent every year, because even the ones that are in tax title now, a lot of them will pay it off, and they'll pay off what's in tax title, but leave the current taxes there. And then you're putting right back in tax title next year. If you subsequent it right over, that money, if they pay the tax title off, you've got that year, you're not gonna see them for another 2 years, if you had to file another tax title. I mean, there's a lot of repeat business in tax title.
That's a good thing.
The same old suspects, the usual
Yes,
suspects.
yes.
Okay.
They're known to the authorities.
All right. So, okay, so in 15, for that professional service, which covers your tax titles, you have 11,000, you had 11,000. For your level service, you have 8. And then for your level dollar, you're back up to 11. So I know it's semantics, but level service, the intention of level service is what do you need?
Yeah,
What do you need to run your department? And you have less in there than you do in level dollars. So,
It should be
know.
reversed.
Um,
It should be
Yeah,
reversed.
yeah.
so I'm thinking they maybe ought to be reversed, which would then give you the money to drop in, to cover the Pitney Bowes machine, the Neopost machine.
yeah, and
So-
that could be the difference.
Yeah, it's
I don't know how zero.
it's roughly. Anyway, I think we need to play with that. I mean, I understand here, obviously in 16, level service says you need $11,000 for your forms, because look what you spent on them in 14. You spent almost 11,000.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's another fixed cost. I mean,
Right. Year 15 appropriation, geez, we might have shorted you on that one. That's 7,500. So the 11,000 makes sense. And the level dollar of 7,500, yeah, well, we did ask you to see if you could do that, but, yeah, no, I think we might want to reverse a couple of these numbers. We'll have to hold you to the same bottom line, but just to sort of rationalize the expenses
Yeah.
within those columns, I think it would make sense to change some of those around.
Yeah, with the forms, we've farmed them out. Over the years, they sort of fell into different boxes. Right now, I have Mass Mail sending out all the tax bills. We call them, we send the file over, they send it out, and they charge 15 cents per bill to, print stuff and get out. So, I mean, it was break even, giving it all to them.
Mm-hmm.
Before, we were printing them in our office. We were ordering buying the forms, printing them in the office, burning up printers. Then they'd come, they'd pick them up, they'd bring them down to the mailing house, and they'd stuff them there. We found it's just a lot easier to call them up saying, here it comes, get it out tomorrow. And we also have to
Sounds
deal
great.
with them. On envelopes, they were actually cheaper than Mass Correctional buying envelopes. They were actually cheaper than convicts printing our envelopes. So I gave them all that business, and they'll also store the envelopes at Mass Mills for us. Because we used to store them upstairs where Bill Ritchie's office is. And seeing though Bill needed an office, we couldn't store them there anymore. We had no place to store envelopes, so Mass Mail has taken that responsibility also.
There's lots of room in here.
Well, we actually put them down here, and the humidity on this floor is so humid, it self-seals some of the envelopes. So
Great.
Mass Mail now stores them for us.
No, I think that's great. Now, is a relationship like that going to prevent you from moving to more of a digital service, if that was possible in the future?
What do you mean by digital service?
Sending people their tax bills on email?
Oh, emailing? Oh, no, you can also do that.
You can also do that.
Yeah.
Is that so is that a duplicate to?
Yeah, I mean, we send them what we send them. I mean, they're working on a bill checkoff. If you don't want your bill, you could opt out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's paid by escrow. But they still haven't perfected that system. Out of Treasury School, they said they were looking into these options, but nothing's available at the moment.
Yeah, because eventually paper will disappear, and we'll be getting our tax bills, in our email.
Hopefully.
On that wonderful day, in December. Okay.
Dead then.
Yeah, but I'll still handle it.
Careful what you wish for. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jim on his budget? We're going to move on to debt service. That's all right. Nope. Great. We're going to move. So last year, we had some excitement with debt service in our budget because our debt service number went up dramatically in February from what we'd been expecting it. So I'm really glad that this year we're not anticipating any activity in February.
No, and I think the
And
next bonding we're gonna
have-
do is August of 16.
Uh-huh.
They're looking at doing some bans till that point.
Okay.
And the water department, DPW, must get going on the projects they have in line. And they're getting us a schedule, hopefully soon, on when they're gonna do these borrowings. But I think it's gonna be some before the end of this year, which will run into next year. But they're bans, so that it's not gonna be a huge interest charge.
Okay, so what we have here is, let's see if I can get out both of them. Okay, so earlier this fall, I got a breakdown on interest and maturing debt for fiscal year 16. It wasn't final, but it did break things down between exempt debt and non-exempt debt. And to the best of my ability, I figured that the non-exempt debt was, that we have to pay for, the general fund has to pay for, was going to be $1,460,000. So it was a little disappointing to get this, which told me right off the bat that it was going to be more money. It was going to be, in point of fact, $1,479,000. You know, not a ton, $19,000, but kind of made me wonder where it came from. So now, as far as the total debt service goes compared to last October, the total debt service, if I add up, okay, sorry, this needs a little more intro because I just sent this out to you guys, what, last night? So you may not have. So this is a large spreadsheet, and it goes out for all the fiscal years that the bonds are alive and payable, and for all the different items. And and they're all arranged by issue dates. So these are bonds from